Everyone, welcome to Kroll's Emerging Threats Weekly brief for the 1st of June 2026. My name is Ryan Hicks. With me today is Sam Flint and Mark Messer from the Threat Intelligence team. So today we're covering the following topics. First up, Ghost CMS vulnerability being exploited by several threat groups. Muddywater espionage campaign updates. Sam will be covering Nimbus Manticore SEO poisoning campaign and the exploitation of a critical PAN-OS vulnerability. And finally, Mark is looking at Lazarus deploying memory-only Remotepe, an Operation Dragon targeting universities and the wider education sector. So first up here, looking at CVE 2026-26980 with a CVSS score of 9.4 affecting Ghost CMS. This is a content management system written in JavaScript used for website building, similar to WordPress. The vulnerability is a critical SQL injection vulnerability used to compromise unpatched instances, repurposing them for downstream malware delivery. It enables unauthenticated access to sensitive database content, so things like administrative API keys. And then what is being reported is threat actors are leveraging these keys to modify site content and inject malicious JavaScript loaders into the content. And this is facilitating ClickFix style social engineering attacks. Reporting suggests that at least two groups are conducting overlapping campaigns targeting the Ghost ecosystem using this vulnerability. And the activity really kind of presents two main risks. The first kind of being the compromised instances themselves providing sensitive data to the actor. So this could, as I mentioned, be the API keys, but of course could hold other sensitive data. And then the second being the victims' trusted websites are being weaponized to deliver these kind of social engineering laws, potentially leading to temporary website blocking due to them being seen as malicious, but also, of course, reputational damage to the company as their website would have essentially been kind of delivering malware to other victims. Recommendations wise, patching being the kind of starter, and then rotating Ghost admin API keys and credentials after patching, auditing for published content and templates for any kind of unauthorized changes, particularly JavaScript changes, and reviewing weblogs for suspicious API use, again, based on that kind of stealing of potential API keys, all kind of if administrators are running kind of affected products. Next up, this is a campaign being reported to have occurred in the first quarter of this year by Muddywater, also tracked as Seedworm, who are an Iranian-linked APT group. So in this campaign, they conducted a broad espionage campaign across 9 countries and 4 continents, so a wide range of sectors. Reported victims include a South Korean electronics manufacturer, industrial manufacturing firms, educational institutions, public sector entities, and financial services organizations. And the campaign really kind of reflects the continued Iranian-aligned interest in organizations with strategic and regional intelligence value to kind of the state. The activity relied heavily on DLL sideloading, using legitimately signed faulty media and Sentinel-1 binaries, including the two you see in the second bullet point, fmap.exe and Sentinel memory scanner.exe. Those used to execute malicious DLLs under the cover of the trusted software. The operators also deployed a Node.js based execution chain that launched PowerShell scripts for a variety of purposes, including reconnaissance, collection, credential theft, privilege escalation. So kind of really covered a wide range of the attack chain with PowerShell. And also the post-exploitation tool, Chrome Elevator, was reportedly used to extract Chromium browser data, including saved credentials, cookies, and payment card information. A few recommendations, particularly for those in similar sectors and regions mentioned. So hunting for unexpected execution of those two binaries mentioned. Monitor Node.js spawning PowerShell and reviewing outbound traffic to public file sharing services, which was also kind of mentioned as one of the exfiltration methods during that campaign, kind of utilizing a number of public known sort of file sharing services. That's all for me. I'll hand over to Sam.
Thanks, Ryan. More Iran-aligned threat actor news from me now, this time with Nimbus Manticore, a focused threat actor cluster also associated with Muddywater. The group resurfaced between February and April, targeting aviation and software organizations across the US, Europe, and Middle East. Activity was observed across 3 distinct waves, coinciding with the US military campaign Operation Epic Fury, launched against Iran on February 28th, pointing to a deliberate, sustained campaign rather than isolated intrusion attempts. The most interesting aspect of the campaign was the clear expansion in delivery techniques on display since the actor was last observed in 2025. Alongside established methods such as career-themed phishing, spoofed meeting invitations, and fake Zoom installers, the group has now introduced SEO poisoning to its tradecraft. This involves directing victims from search results to a counterfeit Oracle SQL developer download page, marking a shift from purely email-driven delivery towards search-based infection pathways, significantly increasing their potential reach. At the same time, the malware stack has also evolved. Activity includes continued use of the mini-junk backdoor alongside a newer family tracked as mini-fast or mini-update. Both make use of app domain hijacking, which is used consistently across both initial execution and persistent stages, indicating a relatively mature and standardized intrusion chain. There are also indicators that elements of the tooling may be AI assisted based on the development patterns and debugging artifacts, although this remains an analytical assessment rather than confirmed capability at this stage. From an operational perspective, this represents a broader shift in flexibility. By combining search poisoning, trusted brand impersonation, and regionally hosted infrastructure, often leveraging Azure, the actor is able to increase initial access opportunities while reducing reliance on traditional phishing, making detection more challenging. For organizations, particularly in aviation software and those operating in affected regions, it's important to treat these techniques as part of a unified approach rather than separate threats. Fake software downloads, recruiter lures, and meeting-themed attachments are all being used together to support sustained access operations. From a defensive standpoint, priority should be given to monitoring and controlling software downloads originating from search results, as well as hunting for indicators of app domain hijacking and anomalous .NET configuration changes. Teams should also review email and web telemetry for impersonation attempts, monitor Azure-hosted infrastructure for potential command and control activity, and reinforce user awareness around recruiter-themed and software update lures. Next slide, please, Ryan. And our second vulnerability this week was a late addition to the roster following research published on Friday, confirming active exploitation of CVE 2026-0257, an authentication bypass affecting PAN-OS and Prisma Access Globalprotect VPN gateways. Disclosed on May 13th, exploitation was observed within 4 days, impacting multiple environments. While initially rated as a medium severity under CVSS version 4, confirmed exploitation has demonstrated reliable, unauthenticated access to VPN gateways, effectively turning this into a perimeter access issue rather than a limited authentication flaw. The activity itself involved forged authentication cookies targeting local administrative accounts. Researchers identified 2 distinct waves of exploitation on May 18th and May 21st, with consistent indicators including reused MAC addresses and infrastructure tied to low-cost hosting providers, suggesting a single actor was behind both waves. In some cases, successful authentication resulted in VPN IP assignment, effectively granting internal network access. In others, the forged cookies were accepted without a full session being established, indicating some variation in behavior depending on the target configuration. At a technical level, the issue stems from the Globalprotect authentication override feature, which allows reuse of a cookie instead of credentials. In vulnerable configurations, these cookies are decrypted but not properly validated, meaning that a correctly forged cookie is treated as legitimate. If the same certificate is reused across services, such as HTTPS on the gateway, attackers can obtain the public key and use it to generate valid authentication cookies, effectively bypassing authentication entirely. Public proof of concept tooling is already available and demonstrates how attackers can extract certificates and iteratively forge cookies until one is accepted, confirming that exploitation is straightforward where misconfigurations exist. Although no lateral movement was observed, gaining authenticated VPN access alone represents a high-risk entry point into enterprise networks, particularly where internal segmentation is limited. For organizations, this should be treated as an urgent issue. The priority is to patch affected systems, disable authentication override where it's not required, and ensure certificates used for cookie encryption are not reused elsewhere. Teams should also monitor for unusual cookie-based authentication activity, particularly involving privileged accounts, and review logs for indicators such as repeated authentication attempts, spoofed MAC addresses, and known malicious source IPs. And that's all from me, Ryan.
Thanks, Sam. Mark.
Thanks, Ryan. Lazarus linked operations have been observed using a fileless remote access Trojan called Remotepe in campaigns against banks and cryptocurrency firms. The malware is designed to be loaded and executed in memory without being dropped in the file system, reducing forensic traces and complicating traditional endpoint detection. The intrusion chain reportedly begins with social engineering over Telegram, where operators impersonate trading firm personnel and use fake scheduling pages. The loader chain uses DP API loader to decrypt payloads, then Remotepe loader to fetch and execute the final RAT directly in memory. Technical reporting also ties the toolchain to ETW patching, Hell's Gate-based evasion, that's a method of performing direct syscalls, and C2 infrastructure, including AESsecure.net and related domains. One reported victim environment observed Remotepe in use along with other Lazarus-associated RATs, suggesting flexible post-compromise access management rather than a single malware dependency. Lazarus continues to blend human-led pretexting with low-visibility malware engineering. Crypto and finance organizations remain especially exposed because the actor can pair initial trust-based contact with stealthy access that is harder to spot through file-centric controls. Security teams should continue to expect further social engineering-led access operations aimed at high-value financial workflows and developer or trading staff. Recommendations are to apply heightened verification for recruiter, investor, and meeting-related outreach over Telegram and similar platforms. Hunting for DP API abusing loaders, ETW patching behavior, and memory-only execution chains. Monitoring connections to reported Remotepe infrastructure and related host indicators. Segmenting and hardening systems used by the Treasury, Exchange, and DeFi operations staff, and conducting incident response drills for fireless malware and browser/session theft scenarios. We can go to the next slide, Ryan. Moving on to talk about Operation Dragon Whistle, that's been targeting universities with double extension lures and Cobalt strike. Recent reports have flagged Operation Dragon Whistle, which is a phishing campaign specifically targeting universities. The attackers use institution-themed lures tied to mandatory physical testing notices. These messages are carefully crafted in order to exploit academic pressure points. They also incorporate real staff names and institutional details, which makes them appear much more legitimate and increases the likelihood that recipients will engage with them. The attack typically begins with a compressed archive attachment. Inside that archive is a malicious LNK file that uses a double extension in order to appear like a PDF. When the file is executed, it launches explorer.exe and runs hidden script content in the background. At the same time, it displays a decoy document to avoid raising suspicion, while continuing the infection process silently. Because the campaign combines realistic details, policy-related urgency, and convincing decoys, it is more difficult to detect using standard anti-phishing awareness alone. In another variation, the initial attachment is a file named cadreprot.doc. This document contains a macro that executes automatically upon opening. Once triggered, the macro discreetly downloads an executable named code.exe from a server controlled by the attackers, which then begins running Visual Studio Code tunnel commands in the background. This activity occurs without any visible indication to the user, allowing the attackers to establish access while remaining undetected. Recommendations in this case are to exercise caution with unexpected attachments, particularly any compressed files or those with misleading file types. Remain alert to unusual system behavior, such as programs launching without user action or unfamiliar processes running, and verify urgent or sensitive communications, even if they do appear legitimate. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks also to Sam. That's all we have for this week. Thank you for joining. If you do have any questions, please contact us at cti@kroll.com. Thank you, and see you next week.